Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 53 of the NordCast. It is Wednesday, April 24th, 2024. I am your host here, Nordic97, joined with Carter and only Carter today. How we doing?
We're doing all right. Jets series 1-1. Not happy with their performance last night. They did play really well, but I feel like we'll probably end up getting into these series. But yeah, it's good playoff hockey, I'd say. There's been some great games so far.
Yeah, there's been a lot of good games.
Also, rest in peace, Jack. Guy is sick. Didn't feel like trying to push through it. You know, he's obviously not a playoff performer. Like, you got guys who play through torn ACLs, and Jack can't beat a little cold. Got to get some ginger ale in his system.
Well, yeah, he is a Chicago Blackhawks fan, and they're usually
not used to the playoffs.
Not used to the playoffs.
And incoming the dynasty comments, and we're fucked.
We're cooked. Now, so, for those who do not know, if you've been living under a rock, the Stanley Cup playoffs are underway. A lot of teams have played the first 2 or 3 games into the first round. Teams are playing game 2 tonight. I know game 3 between Boston and Toronto is going on right now. But there's been a lot of really solid series, so we're gonna go through each one here. We're not gonna spend an overly amount of time on this because we don't want to be here for 4 hours. But we're pretty much just gonna run through each series, give our thoughts on it, see if we're surprised, and then ask the question if we changed our prediction at this point in the series. So a lot of them are actually pretty early on because at the time we're recording, the Kings and Oilers and the Knights and Stars only played 1 game. So we'll figure that out. But regardless, we'll start off in the Eastern Conference with the Battle of Florida, the Panthers versus the Lightning. The Panthers are currently up 2-0 on Florida. So I'll go to Carter. Carter, are you surprised that Florida's up 2-0? And has your opinion changed on this series?
So my opinion on this, I still feel like Tampa has a chance in this. I think no matter what, you go into a team with home ice playoff advantage, you're expected to either get pounded or you pull off an insane upset. Keeping these games close when Florida's at home, even though I get it, you can say, oh, Florida doesn't have that many fans. They've been selling that barn out like crazy come playoff time. Because you get all the people, I don't have to go into it, but whatever. They sell that barn out like crazy. So to lose the first one, which they played horrible, but still kept it a 1-goal game. The next game, they played better. That was a 1-goal game that they took to overtime with Verhaeghe with the OT winner. To be down 2-0 and only be down 2 goals in the series, that's not bad. I truly do think that Tampa still has a chance in this. So I don't think Tampa will go as far as I said. If I could switch how far I said Tampa would go, I would love to do that. But ultimately I can't. So, but yeah, I still do think Tampa has a chance in this series. They're not out of it yet.
Yeah, I mean, even though it is a 2-0, it kind of feels like the conference finals last year with Carolina. Like, the games have been insanely close, and it's been good hockey. Like, I've watched both of these games. They were 2 very good hockey games. So that's something that's definitely good, obviously. My opinion, I had Tampa in 7. Carter had Bolts in 7 as well. I think Tampa has a chance. I don't know if my predictions changed just yet. It all lies on game 3. If Florida goes up 3-0, my opinion does not. My opinion will change, but I'm still leaning to that Tampa in 7. I think they can definitely win the next 2 at home and make this a tied-up series, and things could get interesting there. But regardless, it's been some great hockey. But I do have a question for you. Is Playoff Vasilevsky back? Is Playoff Vazzy back?
Is he? I don't know. Honestly, he's
had pretty solid games the last 2, even though they've been losing.
Like, his goals against average is a 2.5, but yet he's which is I think 7th so far. But he's got the second best save percentage at a 9.22. He's been pretty solid so far, I will say. He might be back, but one goalie that we do got to talk about, Sergei Bobrovsky.
How about that save?
He is a different animal right now. Last year he came in and stole the show. This year, He doesn't come in for anyone. He was their guy day one, and he stole the show. But, yeah, both
The
goalies have been
awareness
unreal.
is actually crazy on that one save.
The fact
Unbelievable.
that might go down as one of the best saves ever.
That's one of the best saves I've ever seen live. Like that.
Yeah.
That was unbelievable. And I saw that. I'm like, yeah, Tampa's scoring that. I forget what Tampa player was, but I'm like, yeah, they're scoring that. And the fact that Vazzy kept it out, I was like in shock. I'm like, what? Like you had no idea.
Well, like it's a cross crease. You're sliding. You're not even looking. Like I will say, one of the most agile saves I've ever seen was the Vasilevsky behind the back catch. That one was unreal. But that save, he's not even looking at the puck, and nasty. That's all I gotta say. It's just nasty.
Unreal. Simply unreal.
Unreal.
So we're gonna skip Boston and Toronto because that game is currently going on. It's like I got a minute left. Boston's up 3-2. We'll get into that series.
Toronto did just take a penalty.
Yeah, they did just take a penalty too. We are transitioning over to Rangers Capitals. It's currently 2-0 in favor of the Rangers. So, Carter, as I look at my predictions here, you had Rangers winning in 7 games. Has that opinion changed?
That first game from Washington was horrendous, I will say. They did not look ready to play. Game 2, they looked a lot better. They blew that lead. It was only I think it was a 2-1 lead. Still, a 1-goal lead in the playoffs.
Sorry to interrupt you, but Washington usually holds the close leads like that.
Yeah.
That was kind of
shocking. I will say, I don't know if this series will go to 7. I think if I could change, I'd say it'll go to 5. Because I don't see Washington taking both of these at home. But I've been mistaken before, so I'm not going to change my prediction. But I will say that I do not think this is going to be as close to the series as I thought. The Rangers are proving to be President's Trophy caliber, and it's showing. And also, I would like to say Matt Rempe is actually just him.
It's funny because like he goes in, scores a goal in the playoffs, and then he comes out and says, "I'm built for the playoffs," and I'm just like, "What? Really? Okay." So yeah, it feels very lopsided. The second game, I agree, was way better from Washington, but there have just been players on that team that have just struggled in this series. Like Ovechkin has been terrible. Lindgren has also been pretty bad too. It kind of goes to show that Washington, even though they made it, they really probably shouldn't have. And it's part of what, and I don't want to go into this loophole, but it kind of makes me a little bit annoyed because I would have much rather seen Detroit or the Flyers or even Pittsburgh go in and play the Rangers because I feel like that would have been a way closer, way entertaining series. But it feels like with the Rangers playing the Capitals, I honestly could see them sweeping them. Like if they win Game 3, it's over for the Caps. It's over. And it might already be over. So
one thing I was looking at, and they were talking about this during Game 1, but they were talking about the experience on that Caps blue line right now. I can't remember if they were talking about it being the entire season or if it was their career with the Capitals. But they had 3 guys under 30 games played. 2 of them, I think, were both in single digits. You need experience on your blue line. I don't care if it's regular season. I don't care if it's playoffs. You need NHL experience there. And the Caps just aren't going to get it. They're just not going to get it. They have way too many injuries right now, and it kind of sucks for them because realistically, I think they have a full healthy lineup. This could be a little bit closer of a series, but ultimately, it's playoffs. Can't always get lucky like that. So, kind of sucks they didn't have depth, but it's all right.
Yeah, and my opinion, I had Rangers in 6. I might transition over to Rangers in 5, and if they lose game 3, I'm going sweep. I honestly just think that the Rangers have dominated them down the stretch, and I think that's not going to change. So moving into Carolina versus the Islanders, talk about a series. So game 1, and I'm going to say my piece here. Game 1 is a very close game. The Islanders actually outplayed the Hurricanes a lot. And with that argument, even though the Hurricanes won 3-1, there was the argument being said that, that's saying that like Carolina hasn't played a meaningful game in weeks and, they looked bad, but they still won. Then came game 2. Game 2 was probably the most lopsided game I have ever seen in my life. And even though it was 3-0 Islanders, it should have been like 7-0 Hurricanes. Like, it was an unbelievable lopsided game. So the Islanders go up 3-0. The shot attempts or the chances were like 102-15 or something. The Hurricanes hit the post like 5 times, and then the Islanders blow a 3-0 lead to make it 4-3. So I'll go more into that in a second, but I want to ask Carter, after that disaster of a game and heading into game 3 tomorrow, has your opinion of Canes in 5 changed?
No. I realistically, I think I'm sticking with Canes in 5 because, as I said, they always tend to steal one somewhere. Usually it comes at home. So I will stick with that. But I will say that is an absolute utter collapse for the New York Islanders. I don't care how early you're up 3-0. You do not blow a 3-0 lead. Another thing I will say, I am sorry, Mikey Bartner. As sorry as I am, 81-0, going almost a perfect season, essentially 82-0. It's gone. It's out the window. That stat, you can have it, you can crumple it, and it can go in the trash. That is heartbreaking.
Yeah,
that is heartbreaking. So we now have some more Mikey Bartner crying images to sift through, but hey, that's what you get for having no faith in the Winnipeg Jets ever.
Yeah, he was one of the people who said that Colorado was going to smoke them, right?
Yeah, I think so. Like,
yeah,
I mean,
that's definitely not.
Come on, have a little. I don't listen. I don't care if you don't think we're gonna win this year. That is 100% fine with me. But when some of the teams you have ahead of us have a worse future and are worse than us now, they ain't winning shit.
Yup, for sure. Yeah, I had Canes in 7. That is still my opinion. I still think the Islanders can take it to a 7-game series. But honestly, if the Canes win game 3, I'm going Canes in 4. It's a must-win game for the Islanders. It's weird because this is the second straight year they find themselves in this situation. So that is something that I thought was interesting.
Well, they're finally starting Sorokin though.
Yeah, they are. They are starting Sorokin for game 3.
Which honestly, it's about fucking time. I don't know why they didn't start him at the start of the series. I don't care if Varlamov won 5 straight. Sorokin is your guy. You gotta start your main guy in the playoffs. We're not going to talk about the Boston-Toronto series, or maybe we will because they just won. But if we do end up talking about it, I do have to talk about that series, their goaltending there.
Yeah, so we'll transition over to that, Boston versus Toronto. I wanted to wait until the game was over because there was literally like a minute left, so I'm just like, we're going to do the other series before we get into that. But Boston versus Toronto, it's currently a 2-1 series lead for the Bruins. So, Carter, you had Bruins in 5. Has your opinion changed?
Nope. I'm sticking with that. I'm sticking with Bruins in 5. Listen, this should be a back and forth series, honestly. Like realistically, it could go Toronto steals 1 in Boston, and now Boston just stole 1 in Toronto, and then Toronto can end up winning at home. Nah, I don't see it. Because here's my thing, right? This was one of the things I wanted to talk about, was the goaltending in this series. I completely understand that Boston has flip-flopped goalies every other game. They need to start riding Jeremy fucking Swayman. I don't give a shit. Oh my gosh, it's driving me insane. Game 1, he posts a .972 save percentage. This game, he posts a .933. I completely understand that, not Omar's fault in game 2 at all. He's played unreal. But you gotta start Jeremy Swayman. He's your guy. In my opinion, they should realistically roll Swayman until something. Like, it's nice to be able to flip-flop goalies. I feel like if I was a Bruins fan, I wouldn't be like this. Or if I just, didn't have a lot of money in Jeremy Swayman cards. But that's besides my point. Realistically, I really think Jeremy Swayman should be the all-time starter in this. And then if something bad happens to Swayman, or he just looks bad, you flip him. Even if he gets a win, you just flip them. but I don't know because I'm not in their locker room. But I will say I really do think they should start Jeremy Swayman. I don't care if they've been doing it all regular season. It's the playoffs. You start your number one, and that is final.
What about Ilya Samsonov?
What do you mean?
How do you feel about how he's played?
Oh, Samsonov. Honestly, I have not looked at his stats.
Okay.
He's been all right. I think right.
He was pretty bad in game one.
Game one, he was horrible. Game one, he was
pretty
horrible. But
atrocious.
he seemed to turn it around now, though. Like, he's posted back-to-back 900s. Last game he posted a 933. This game he posted a 909.
Yeah, so he's getting better. He's definitely better.
He's playing better. Sometimes it takes a game to settle in, but not for Jeremy Swayman. He settled in right away, and he should be their starter.
Yeah, I am in the opinion of Bruins in 7. I honestly could possibly go down to the Bruins in 5. I look at Toronto like we talk about Samsonov who had a bad game. Toronto has no defense.
No, they got none.
In the first couple of games, they were playing Simone Benoit, I swear, like 20 minutes. Like, I swear, they played him a ton in the first game of the series. I don't know what game 2 and game 3 looked like, but the fact that you're playing someone like him, regular NHL shifts, no disrespect to Benoit, but he should not be a regular starting defenseman. Like, even the guys that got at the deadline, just like your defense is just non-existent. And you talk about like offensive depth, it feels like they don't have any of that at all. I know Boston's offensive depth, when you look at it on paper, it's actually pretty weak, but a lot of it's been pretty solid this year.
They've been getting scoring from all 4 lines.
Yeah, essentially.
That's the thing.
Yeah, they were getting like game 1, they got scores from Johnny Beecher, they got goals from defensemen, they got 2 from DeBrusque. They're getting goals from players that aren't named David Pastrnak or Brad Marchand, so that narrative can go away. Toronto, it feels like it's just Matthews, essentially, and some of those big name guys. Now, I didn't look at who scored tonight. I probably should.
Bertuzzi and Nyes.
So
Bertuzzi. So pretty much, I think that's their second line. I think because Nyes plays up pretty high in that roster.
Yeah, I believe that is their second line. So you look at game 2, the guys who scored: Max Domi, Tavares, and Matthews. Those were the guys that scored in that game. It feels like they have no depth, essentially. In Boston, I know Boston's depth isn't as good as it was in previous years, but it still is solid depth. It just feels like Toronto does not have that. So I'm actually changing my opinion. The Bruins in 5. I feel like unless Toronto can win game 4, they're going to the Bruins are going to give it to them in the next 2 games. And then Toronto will be out, and we'll talk about what happens.
Toronto needs a third line or third or fourth line that can play defense, but also has some guys that can score. Because it doesn't seem like they have that. Like that's one thing you need, especially come playoff time. Because playoff time, you need guys who aren't scared to play the body, and who will be able to skate, make chances, and make some rushes. So
there are guys on this team who play like that. But none of them they just don't have any secondary scoring. That's
what they have. They have the defensive guys, but they don't have the offensive upside that on that roster.
Yeah, so essentially you're relying on Matthews, Marner, Nylander, which you should, but then again, how good has that done them in the last couple of years? When you look at when it comes to when it matters. Also,
where is William Nylander? What the fuck?
Yeah, what is happening there? Like, all of a sudden, he just gets injured? Like,
no one knows. No one knows. Biz Nasty has been asking around. I don't fucking know. Apparently, he pulled something in his back. I don't want to make assumptions here, but I don't care if you're skating in practice. I don't care. It's playoff time. You get your ass out there and you start skating.
How about Austin Matthews resting? What was that today?
Did they rest him game 1?
He rested from practice. He said, he's taking a rest day from practice. I'm like, huh?
Oh, well, most of the time those practices are optional.
No, but still, like, it just still seems strange. I'm trying to pull up the forwards here, see what his overall numbers were. Not Bruins, Maple Leafs. So Matthews' stats, he had no points.
Three shots, 8 hits.
23 minutes.
Also, a lot of hits tonight. 68 for the Leafs, 65 for the Bruins. Holy, what a fun series.
Every player on this, I'm looking at the list. Every player on the Maple Leafs had a hit tonight.
That's playoff hockey right there.
Every player on the Bruins except for 2 had hits tonight as well. So it's pretty wild. But anywho, moving out of the Boston and Toronto series, moving into the Western Conference, we'll start out with the Dallas Stars and the Vegas Golden Knights. Game 2 is tonight, and Vegas won the first game. Vegas won the first game 4-3. They take a 1-0 series lead. There was a lot of talk in that about Mark Stone, Jake Ottinger not having a great game. But Carter, we're 1 game into the series, so I don't really know if your opinions changed. But you had Stars in you had Stars in 4. Did I write that down right?
There's no way if I said Stars in 4, past me was smoking some crack.
Oh wait, no. I know why. Because originally when we did this, the Stars were going to play the Kings. That's why. That's why you had Stars in 4. So what was your original prediction? I think I asked you.
I think you asked me. I think I flipped it to 7.
So
because I think I said in the chat, no matter who plays the Knights, I don't care if it's Edmonton or Dallas, it's 7.
Yeah. So I was gonna say there's no.
I was gonna say what is wrong with me?
Yeah, you said Dallas is 7. Right? So
okay.
What has your opinion changed? 1 game into the series, I can't believe I actually thought you would say that.
There's no honestly, when you said that, I had to question myself. I'm like, there's no way. But okay. Anyways, okay. Not really, no. I feel like we knew Vegas was gonna be unreal. I still have faith in the Dallas Stars. They'll get it done.
Fucking do it.
I got faith in the Dallas Stars. All right, that's all I gotta say. They're fine. We're fine. Everything is A-okay. Everything's working out how it should. All right, we're fine. I'm good. I'm calm, cool, and collected.
We'll see if that's the truth next week, because there will be teams that will no longer be in the playoffs next week. Yeah, I think it's a little bit too early to tell if my opinion is going to change. I think that the Stars can definitely still win the series. It's a 7-game series, so for sure. Ottinger looked bad in game 1. I think Carter's nose is bleeding. Anywho, Ottinger looked bad in game 1, but I do think that in terms of just like the overall few, I think Otter just had a bad game, and I think that definitely next game will be much better. People complain about the LTIR thing. That's gonna be how it is for 2 more years. That's not gonna change for 2 more seasons. So it sucks, but you just have to accept it for how it is. And the weird thing is that people are acting like that Vegas is like way over the cap, like they're millions of dollars over the cap. If they pulled someone out of the lineup, like I read an article where it was like, if they pulled Anthony Mantha out of the lineup and they put in someone else, like if they put in, I don't know, like a lower paying center or a lower paying player, they'd be below the cap. So they aren't above the cap by a lot. They're really only over it by like 1 player. So it's not a huge deal, but I do get the rule. So I'm keeping my opinion of Stars in 7. We'll move into the next series.
Can I say one thing quick? I will say game 1, I don't fully blame Ottinger. There were a couple that were just great shots with great screens. And there wasn't a whole heck of a lot he could do on some of those. So I don't know if Bartner's going to do his like deep dive with his point scoring system that he took from Theo Ash that he did with Georgiev in game 1. But if he does, it's going to be pretty low because there were just some that he wasn't a whole lot Ottinger can do.
Yeah, there was a couple of chances like the Hannafin goal was tipped. The Hurdle goal was just a rebound. It was a good rebound.
Yeah. The third or second goal was just a perfect screen executed masterfully.
Yeah, so Vegas just capitalized on a lot of them. There's a lot of defensive woes from Dallas yet again.
Yeah.
So, transitioning over to Colorado versus Winnipeg. The series is tied at 1. Carter actually went to one of these games. He went to game 2. The game they lost. Of course he was. So, essentially, I'm going to go to Carter. Carter, you had Jets in 7, I believe. So, are you surprised by how this series has gone so far, and has your overall opinion changed?
No. Realistically, I did not think that we would win back-to-back games against Colorado. That does not happen. Now, I will say one thing that also does not happen is beating Colorado at home. I will say, who's the only team to do that this season?
The Winnipeg Jets.
Nordic's repping them. Thank you. So I know we can do it. It's not that complicated. I think we can do it definitely. The whiteout is still one of the best home ice advantages in the National Hockey League. We got Pat McAfee on the bandwagon. Love to see. This is crazy that I've been talking about him since like before episode 50, and now he's on our bandwagon. Like, it's just life's come full circle, you know?
For real.
But I will say I'm not worried right now. It's hard to win back-to-back games against the Colorado Avalanche, but it's also hard to win in their building. But I do think that we can do it. I'm sticking with Jets in 7. And then I'll let you say your thing, and then I got to come back to talk about Colorado.
Okay. So I think Georgiev had a really bad first game. How did he look game 2? He didn't look terrible, right?
So game 2, he looked all right. That first period, we were kind of all over them. A lot of them just missed opportunities that we just couldn't capitalize on, or just missed the net. But most of the goals weren't really his fault. So he didn't play as bad as he did in game 1, but I still don't think Georgiev should start. I think that we capitalize on more of those chances. He's done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. So I am sticking with Jets in 7, though. I do think that even though Georgiev hasn't been great, I still think you can't count Colorado out. Like, I just can't see a world where the Avalanche are just going to roll over and let you win in 5 or 6. Like, no, if you're going to beat Colorado, you're going the full 7. So that's kind of how I view that. I think Winnipeg has actually looked really good in these games, and people are going to be shocked. People are going to be shocked if Winnipeg beats Colorado, because so many people took Colorado. So many people wrote off Winnipeg and said, "Oh no, they're not a good team." And part of me, even though I have Winnipeg in 7, I didn't really give them a lot of credit, because a lot of what I said when who I thought I was going to win the series was kind of just saying that I was not confident in Colorado, not that I was with Winnipeg. But regardless, they've been very good these 2 games. Even though they lost game 2, they looked pretty good. I definitely think that they can win this series in 7. So that's my view. Moving into the other series now, we got 2 more. We got Nashville and Vancouver. That series is tied at 1, but there might be something that happened off the ice that might make you think that Nashville could pull off the upset here. So, Carter, you had Predators in 7. Has your opinion on that changed? Nope, he's shaking his head.
Nope.
It's not.
Honestly, if anything, I might take it down to 6.
Maybe. Honestly, maybe. Like,
nope.
I look at the Smith. I mean, like, he's not a horrible goalie, but I'm not like too keen.
He's no Thatcher Demko.
No.
He is no Thatcher Demko. And I will say, Nashville has looked great.
Even in game 1, they looked good.
Even in game 1, they looked great. Just 2 goals in 12 seconds that you can't have happen. Those don't, like, just 1 goal. I still think they win that game in overtime.
Mm-hmm.
This could be a 2-0 series for the Preds right now. But going into Vancouver and stomping them up by 3, I know that this happened to Winnipeg, so we don't have to discuss that. Just all right. But I will say, I have a lot of confidence in the Predators going back at home. Smashville is going to be loud, and I don't think Vancouver's ready for it.
Yeah, I'm staying. Me and you. I'm looking at these picks. We pretty much had like the same picks for almost every single series. I think. Like, yeah, we have the same pick for like every series except for. No, we actually have the same pick for every series. Wow, great minds think alike. But yeah, I have Predators in 7 as well. I'm actually going that route too, and they could very well win in 6. Like Carter said, the Smith is not Thatcher Demko. I really do think, and I'm very high on Nashville. If Saros can play like playoff Saros, which he has looked like the last couple of games, definitely think they can beat them in 6 or 7. I still think Vancouver takes a few. I still think Vancouver takes it the full 7. Because I think this team's too talented to just go out like that. But I do think Nashville gets the win overall in 7 games. And I think it'd be a pretty surreal upset. I'm really high on Nashville this year. I like Nashville a lot.
I agree.
And then finally, we got Oilers Kings. Game 2's like literally about to start. I'm watching the pregame right now. Our opinion may change depending on who wins, but the Oilers are up 1-0 in the series against the Kings. Carter, you had Oilers in 7, if I'm looking at that correctly. Has your opinion changed? And are you surprised about this so far?
So, no, because I did not say Oilers in 7. I said that if they played Vegas.
No, you said Oilers in 7 in here, I think.
Anyway, against the Kings? No way.
I believe
not
so.
a chance.
I think you did. I'm pulling it up right now.
I don't think I did. Well, if so, it changes. It's Edmonton in 5.
You have Edmonton in 7.
Okay. So that changes. It's Edmonton in 5 now. Okay. It should have always been Edmonton in 5. I don't know why I would have said 7. LA's not talented. LA's not good. Okay. Like we've been over this. We've been over this. I don't care about the Evander Kane 7 game thing. No. We're going to put these 2 fingers down. This is no longer 7. This is a peace sign because it's peace out LA Kings in 5.
Oh, wow.
Okay? Wow. We're getting methodical with this one, all right?
You trying to be like Keegan Olivera with that? Wow.
They
call it Cowboys fan?
Don't even start with this. You still lost your Philly card, motherfucker.
Anywho, yeah. I am. You go. Go ahead.
I'm sticking with it. I'm sticking with Edmonton in 5. Okay, that first game was just utter domination. LA did not look ready to play.
Yeah, I'm going with the same thing. I think Oilers take it in 5. I think the Kings actually win tonight. I think the Kings will win tonight, and then the Oilers will take the rest. That's kind of how I see that. That's kind of how I see it going down. I do think a lot of people might be overrating the Kings a little bit, but I am kind of on that same board where I take Edmonton in 5. So yeah, I agree with you. So above all, we just went through all the series. Which one has been your favorite one to watch so far?
Damn.
And also, which one has been your least favorite?
Okay, well, least favorite Jets, Colorado, because that's fucking stressful as shit. Been a great series, but oh my, I am stressed. My favorite series, damn. I mean, I feel like that. God, you're actually making this kind of tough.
It is.
I've only really watched. I'd say Florida Tampa. That has been a great series, but I feel like what? No, Boston Toronto. That's probably been my favorite series so far. I've caught every game, and a lot of hits, which is what I like, as I've said numerous times. So I think that's been my favorite series, and I think that's going to remain my favorite.
I am on the board of Florida Tampa. I think that has been the most enjoyable series. Least enjoyable, I don't know. Like, that's kind of difficult because all of these have been pretty good to watch. Like I've watched almost every single game of the playoffs so far. I've watched one game from each series. So, and I've streamed almost one game from each series too. So above all, they've all been very entertaining. I think I'm going to go Oilers Kings. I mean, we're only one game into the series, so I can't say for sure. There is a girl. I'm looking at the pregame. There is a girl that just popped up on my screen who has painted herself gray and is dressed like a Stanley Cup. What the hell did I just witness? So yeah, for that reason and that reason only, Edmonton LA is the worst series I've watched in this playoffs. And the fact that it is the worst is saying a lot because all these series have been really fun. So yeah, transitioning. Actually, one more thing. Carter, you had Winnipeg over Tampa. Has your finals changed potentially?
Yeah, I don't think Tampa's built for a cup run. Actually, no. Tampa, I forgot about this. Tampa might be built for a cup run. They get Sergachev back, who is skating. I'm going to say this. If this Tampa series goes to 7, maybe Sergachev comes back for game 7. And if so, I would love Tampa's chances in that.
Maybe.
This is all going to depend on if Sergachev comes back or not. If Sergachev is back for round 2 or for late round 1, I like Tampa's chances. If not, I am taking Carolina to the top. So awesome. It's all gonna depend on Sergachev, in my opinion.
I had Dallas over Carolina. I'm still sticking with that. I think I think it's still very possible. So yeah. Moving into news and headlines around the NHL, we're gonna try and not go into the playoff stuff because we already talked about most of it. The San Jose Sharks have fired head coach David Quinn as of 8 hours ago today. Quinn has been a solid coach. He's been okay for San Jose. I think with the team being absolutely terrible, no matter who you put as coach, they're going to be bad. So I think it might be the right move. You want to get those young guys in and start developing them a little bit, and bring in a coach that can do that. So maybe David Quinn is there for that reason. In other news, the Buffalo Sabres hired Lindy Ruff as their head coach. He is now I think it's the 6th head coach that has been on the team since the last time they made the playoffs. I do have a thing here. I'm going to try and pull it up real quick. He is, I believe, including himself twice. Actually, if you include the interim head coach and Lindy Ruff, he is the 8th coach to come in since the last time this team made the playoffs. And Lindy Ruff is 2 of those 8. That's pretty insane to think. I get why. I get why they do this. They want to see, because the last time Lindy Ruff was the coach of this team, the Sabres made the playoffs. So they're trying to think to themselves, hey, if we bring Lindy Ruff back as the head coach again, maybe we'll be back in the playoffs. I don't know.
I doubt it.
I think at this point, they're at 13 seasons out. They're just we might as well try it. Why not?
Yeah.
We'll see what happens at this point. But yeah, Lindy Ruff's the Sabres' new coach. As well as that, too, the Philadelphia Flyers re-signed Ivan Fedotov to a 2-year, $3.25 million deal. So, since we're both Flyers fans, Carter, what do you think about this deal? He doesn't know.
Big shrug.
Big shrug?
I don't know.
Right. Okay.
I like it.
I think that it can be an overpay if Fedotov looks bad this year, but I think it could be a steal if Fedotov looks good. So yeah. I really have
that's why I'm giving it a shrug. He only played 3 NHL games. He looked decent, but he only played 3 NHL games. I think we put him in some actual Flyers gear and not just his white bucket and whatever fucking pads and shit he wants. I think we put him in some. I think we upgrade his sty. Then maybe we'll have him, but until the sty gets upgraded,
maybe he'll get better at that point. Speaking of also Flyers related news, Jacob Voracek retired. Voracek, one of my childhood players. This actually kind of sucks. It made me reminisce to yesterday when he retired. I was thinking to myself, man, Wayne Simmons retired a few weeks ago. Now Jacob Voracek retired. That's literally my childhood. When I got into hockey, those 2 guys were some of my favorite players that I watched on the team, and now they're retired. So it's kind of sad. But yeah, Jacob Voracek retired. Additionally, too, Jacob Silverberg retired with the season being over, and Pavel Francouz also retired. So those are 3 players that have retired. All right, so I think that is all for news. Unless if I'm missing something, there might be something else. But I'm looking down the list here. I don't really see a lot of things that are entirely too relevant besides things we talked about last episode. So we're going to get straight into our other topics for this episode. We don't have any games going on. So unfortunately, we had no games. No Jack's got a player because Jack ain't here. So we're going to grade GMs. So there were 6 GMs this year who who had their first full season of being a general manager under their certain teams. And we're going to go through each one of them here today and give them an overall grade for how they've done this year. So we'll start off with Danny Briere. Briere is the GM of the Philadelphia Flyers, got hired after the trade deadline last year. He had the offseason where he drafted Matvei Michkov, traded for a guy like Massimo Rizzo, gave up essentially nothing for him. He made some other trades as well. Heading into the season, Philadelphia is a really surprisingly good team. Then he goes out at the deadline and trades Sean Walker for a first-round pick. And even though the team missed the playoffs, they still had a very good, high-achieving season. So I'll go to Carter first. Carter, what is your overall letter grade on Danny Briere and how he's done his first season as GM?
I like it. I think, he kind of had a little bit of experience last year. He kind of got to become a little bit more familiar with the team coming in as the interim head coach. I think getting that tag taken off and him being the actual GM of the Flyers is a great thing. I really like what he's done. I think, being able to get Michkov, ultimately the loss of Cutter was tough, but he did what he did what he had to do with Cutter Gauthier. Ultimately, just and the thing I don't understand, I don't want to talk about this Cutter Gauthier trade anymore because it's done. It's out of my head. I don't give a fuck. Except for the fact that I do and I will be in Philly when they play Anaheim. That is a fact.
Oh yes, me too.
So there's that. But I think other than that, like he did what he had to do. He addressed a position that we needed, which is a defense, and Jamie Drysdale is not bad. A second round pick, which is fine. You can usually get someone pretty decent in there if you know how to scout right. And like he's made some good signs. Like we were able to get Fedotov over. We signed the other goalie, which was Kolosov, right? We got Sean Walker. We flipped him for a first round pick, which is
the Provorov deal too. I forgot to even talk about that as well.
Provorov deal was unreal for us. Like he's made some great trades. I don't care. He's made some good moves. He's made chef's kiss. Just mwah. He's made some moves, and I'm happy with them. I am happy with them. So if I were to I don't think I can give him an A+ because I think that, I mean, even with the Cutter situation, I think he did a great job, but I would have loved to have seen Cutter Gauthier in a Flyer jersey or a little bit more in return for a top 5 player who absolutely lit up.
Yeah, instead of just Jamie Drysdale, I would have liked more than that. Like maybe I don't know if you could have gotten a first round pick too, but maybe even a first.
Yeah, but like that is okay. I'm comfortable with what he did, so I will give him an A-.
Well, no matter what you think, it's better than Chuck. It's way better than Chuck. When we started
100%.
When we started out this podcast, I actually listened to the earlier episodes recently, and there were just times where I would just go on a tangent about Chuck Fletcher. I have not done that once this year with Briere. I haven't. I've really liked almost all of Briere's moves he's made. I'm with you there too. I'm not giving him an A. I'm not giving him an A+. I'm giving him an A. I think every move he's made is good. The only things that I've been like a little bit iffy with is the Fedotov signing and the Cutter Gauthier trade made me a little bit like I feel like he could have got a little bit more back in return. But apart from that, he's done everything that I've wanted him to. So I'm going to give him an A. Moving on now to the other GMs, we got Barry Trotz. Trotz obviously became the GM of the Predators in the offseason of last year, made some good moves at the draft. Signed Ryan O'Reilly and Gustav Nyquist for pretty good money, and both of them were 70-point scorers this season. Also, didn't end up trading Askarov or Saros, which was a good move as well. He went on the trade deadline, acquired some solid players like Bavillier and Jason Zucker. I'm trying to think of some other moves he made, but overall, he took a Predators team that was kind of like, they looked like they were going to have a bad future and made them into a playoff team. So, Carter, what is your personal grade on Barry Trotz of the Nashville Predators?
Hey, I will give him credit where credit's due. He did a good job. From a guy who was a coach to go into a GM role is not very easy, especially as quick as he did. Because he was like, it's like a year or two off or something like that. So he wasn't out of the league for very long, which I think definitely does help. But you're going from a coach to a general manager, and that is two not very different roles, but they're pretty different in comparison. I think he did a heck of a job for having no GM experience. I like the moves he did. Some of the ones were a little questionable. I will say, like, he cut Duchesne, right?
He did buy out Matt Duchesne. I kind of forgot about that whole entire kerbuckle.
Yeah.
But then he brought in a guy like
Ryan O'Reilly to kind of replace him.
Didn't they trade for someone else? Wasn't it Galchenyuk? Wait, no, they traded Galchenyuk away.
Yeah, which is good before the complete
before everything that happened. Who did they get back in return for that deal? I remember they got someone back that was kind of notable.
I don't know.
God, but anywho,
I don't know. I will say a great job from Barry Trotz, kind of transitioning from the head coach to the GM role. I like the moves he made. That Duchesne one is not looking too good. That's the only really looking at it. That's one of like the biggest red flags that I'm looking at because Duchesne has played actually like really good in Dallas. I will say I like that fit there for him. So I think with that, I think I'm gonna go B+. I think that he took this team who was a fringe playoff team, and I mean without that massive run, winning streak, I don't think they would have been. But I will say he built a great team, a team that's playoff ready, and that clicked. So I'll give him a B+, somewhere in there.
Yeah, I'm actually going with the A+. I think that he's done absolutely awesome this year. Took a Predators team that was honestly not great at all to a really solid playoff team. I looked it up here. He did actually trade Ryan Johansson over to Colorado with 50% salary retained. So that actually looks like a solid deal. And actually, no, they did acquire Galchenyuk. they were the team that acquired Galchenyuk.
Oh.
So, I mean, they didn't know about what happened. I think immediately after the stuff that happened, I think they bought him out. So, or they traded him away. So, I think that they handled that situation well. They did a good job of that. But overall, I'm giving him an A+. He took a team that was not expected to really do much this year and turned them into a confident playoff team. So next up here, we got Calgary Flames GM Craig Conroy. Conroy was hired in the offseason of last year. He was dealt, and I know you might give him a harsh rating here, but he was dealt a pretty bad hand. Initially, when they made the trade with the Devils to trade off Toffoli for Sharon Govich in the third, that trade looked terrible at the time. That looked absolutely horrible. If that went out as planned, I think my grade would be way different on him. But they actually won that deal in retrospect because Sharon Govich turned into a really good scorer this year. Toffoli just didn't pan out with the Devils. Isn't even with the Devils. He's with the Jets now. So, and then as well as that too, he made a lot of trade deadline moves. Moved off Zadorov for a fifth and a third. He also traded Lindholm away for Kuzmenko, a solid defenseman in Yoni Yermo, Hunty Brucevic, who's been compared to Adam Fox, a 2024 first, and a conditional fourth. Then he also traded away Chris Tanev over to the Devils in exchange for Grushnikov as a solid B-level prospect defenseman, a second, a third. Then he also traded Hanifin off to Vegas for Miromanov, a conditional first, and a third. And then he also traded away a few other like minor death moves. And he also didn't make that bad of signings either. He tried to get Hanifin to work, but just honestly, he wasn't able to. Overall, I'm giving him a B+ on this. I know I kind of went like on a tangent there, but Carter, what is your grade on Conroy?
I think he's done a great job. Did not have a great hand. I think, last year after just missing out on the playoffs, I think you're kind of looking at this like, well, what direction do we go now? That direction was a rebuild. So I will say Tyler Toffoli, pretty good trade for them. I don't know. I don't really have a whole heck of a lot to say on the matter for Conroy. I think he did a great job. He made some good moves, some questionable ones, but I think that they'll all end up kind of panning out. Especially that Lindholm deal. That one looks like a great deal for them as well. I really like, because they got Kuzmenko, right?
Yep, they got Kuzmenko from that.
Yeah.
So
great move. I think I really do like Andrei Kuzmenko. I think he'll fit in great in Calgary, and future's looking bright for them. So I'll go with you on a B+ there.
Okay. So we'll move into the San Jose Sharks and Mike Grier. There's going to be a lot of hate for this one. I am on the opposite opinion from some people. Mike Grier was hired midway through last year after I think it was Doug Wilson was let go as GM. He was given kind of like Conroy a pretty bad hand with a lot of this. But he's come in, has made some pretty solid moves. He moved out Erik Karlsson, only had to retain about 13% of his salary, which is pretty solid. Got back a guy in Mike Hoffman, who's still on the team. Got back a guy in Mikael Granlund, who was a 60-point scorer this year. Got back a defenseman in Jan Rutta. Got back a first-round pick from Pittsburgh, which they do have, even though it was top 10 protected. They also acquired a solid defenseman in Kalen Addison. You move into the deadline deals. He signed Duclair in the offseason, moved him away for a pretty solid defensive prospect in a third-round pick. Then he also moved out Kaapo Kahkonen to the Devils for Vanacek in the seventh. And then as well as that, too, we also traded Tomas Hertl away to Vegas for a guy like David Edstrom, a solid B-level prospect and a 2025 first-round pick. So I know he does it, and they also drafted Will Smith and some of the other guys, too, like Quentin Musty and all that. So I know a lot of people really don't like the moves he's made, but I want to hear Carter's opinion first. Carter, what is your overall grade on Mike Grier?
Honestly, for year one in San Jose, not too bad. I don't think you can really complain about that too much. We talked about Conroy being dealt a shit hand. You can't get much shittier than the worst team in the National Hockey League.
Yeah, you really can't. So.
But,
for sure.
Yeah, I will say, though, he did a heck of a job. Drafting Will Smith, I think, is a great first step, who's looked absolutely unreal at NCAA this year. They have a top pick right now, too. So realistically, they should get another top guy, which Celebrini and Will Smith, as well as who they get, Colin Graff or someone? The guy from Quinnipiac?
Colin Graff from Quinnipiac. I forgot to mention that, too.
Yeah.
So
he
got a really
especially getting that.
college.
that right there is a nice looking forward stack right there. I think being able to do that in 1 year, just he made some good moves too. He had to get off of Hurdle because especially as a rebuilding team, you don't really want a guy who's there and who's on that big of a salary. I know they had to retain a little bit of it, but 18% retained is not that much. That should not affect them too much. But heck of a job in year one for him, I will say, especially with the hand he was dealt, being able to have two top guys already. Who Will Smith, he's not locked and signed in or whatever yet, but you'll end up getting Macklin Celebrini next year too, and who knows, if you end up having Macklin Celebrini with the team next year, there might be something that tells Will Smith, hey, I wanna go play some NHL hockey right now. So
Yeah.
we'll have to see what happens in the draft. So yeah.
Did you give your grade on him?
Oh, I did not give my grade. I'll give him an A. I'll give him an
Okay.
A. For the hand he was dealt, I will give him an A.
I'll give him a B. I think a B is kind of fair for him. I do like all the moves he's made. I agree with you. He's been dealt a really bad hand. But I think he's really commandeered through. And there's a lot of people who like really don't like it at all. Like they don't like the fact that all the retention slots are taken up, which I think could play a role in if we move into the next couple of seasons. The returns on some of these deals they get for some of these players might be limited just because of those retention slots being taken up. Because essentially, you're gonna have to bring in a third team, which means you're gonna have to give up more assets. So it's a thing there that you got to think about. But I'm still gonna give Greer a B. I think he's done a good job this year with a pretty crappy hand that was dealt with the San Jose Sharks. Moving into the Pittsburgh Penguins, you got Kyle Dubas. Dubas obviously came in the offseason for Pittsburgh, was a part of the Erik Karlsson trade, which I kind of think in retrospect Pittsburgh lost. They don't have a first round pick. Now they're stuck with a really bad defenseman contract. Other things they did, they also drafted a guy like Braden Yeager, which I like a lot. I think I like Yeager. Yeager's a good, solid forward. They also traded Alex Nylander over to Columbus for Emil Bemstrom. Both looked really good, strangely, when they were traded. It was very weird. Then they made the Jake Gensel deal, which they traded Gensel to Carolina. They got a guy back in Michael Bunting. They got a guy in Ponomarev, Lucius, Koivunen, and then a conditional second, which I think becomes a first if the Canes make the finals. And they also got a fifth as well. In terms of signings, they also signed Alex Nedeljkovic. Not a bad signing there. I'm trying to think, too. They also made some other moves, too, bringing in some other players. But, yeah, I think Dubas, the Erik Karlsson trade really weighs down what he did this year. I'm giving him a C+. I think that the Karlsson trade, like, really, really weighs that grade down. Had that not happened, I think he gets a higher grade. But I think everything else outside of the Karlsson deal was pretty solid, in my opinion. So, Carter, what is your grade for Kyle Dubas?
I think I'm going to give him a C. I think he did an all right job. But I will say one thing. When you're going into a new building, you make a big trade right away, you better pray that shit hits. And it did not hit with Erik Karlsson. He was supposed to help their scoring, especially on the defensive side. And the value was never higher for him. And they bought him at his peak, and he crashed. His stock dropped, which is very unfortunate for them there. So I'm gonna give him a C. I think all the other moves he made, that Jake Gensel deal, he kind of had to, as much as I know a lot of the guys did not want him to. It was a move that he had to do. So the return he got in it was pretty good. I like the prospects that they got, as well as Bunting's looked pretty good for them as well when he did play. So I think that he did a decent job with that Karlsson trade. When you buy a guy at his peak, you better hope he still rises or he stays the same, and not crash as Karlsson did. So it's unfortunate for him, but I'm gonna give him a C.
All right. And we move into our final GM here that we're going to give a grade for. We got Brad Treliving. I understand that Steve Stais was like hired as the Senators GM, but that was midway through the season. And also Davidson got hired too, so we're not going to get into that. But we got Brad Treliving here for Toronto. He came in, drafted Easton Cohen. That looked like a bad drafting pick, but I actually think that looks better for them now. I think that Cohen's actually been pretty underrated this year. Looks very solid. In terms of trades, he traded for Ilya Labushkin from Carolina. He also traded for Joel Edmondson from Washington. He traded for Connor Dewar from the Wild. He also signed the Nylander and Matthews contract, which, depending on how you look at them, that could be overpays or underpays. So listen. I don't like his moves. I don't like the efforts he made at trying to go out and get a defenseman. I understand that when they tried to go out and get guys like Tanev, they tried to get the Zadorov, but obviously they didn't give up enough and they just weren't good enough with making their offers. So I'm honestly going to give Tree Living a C minus. I don't really like a lot of his moves. I think the Nylander contract is, even though I understand the reason why, I think it's going to be an overpay. The Matthews deal looks great. The Matthews deal actually looks really good. But I just think that the overall Nylander trade is going to look like an overpay. He did hit though with Bobby McMahon. McMahon was a good deal though. But I'm giving him a C minus. So Carter, what is your grade for GM Brad Tree Living of Toronto?
I think he did an all right job. I think he did good. He really didn't make like too many trades. He made some good signings. I feel like that's kind of how it is with the Leafs every year. They go out and they acquire at least one big piece, and they lose their first round pick of that year. Or they don't do that and they just ride that team for as long as they can. The signings were good. This Nylander one could end up hurting, because it's a lot of term and a lot of money, and they are going to be kind of screwed in a little bit. I've said this before. I think that they should have moved off Marner last year, especially if they wanted to try and keep Nylander this year. But ultimately, they had no idea that Nylander was going to play this good to start the year. They banked on him not, and that shit did not pay off. And now they can't trade him. They can't trade Tavares. They can't trade Riley, and they're not trading fucking Austin Matthews. So they really only had one option, and that was to either trade or keep Nylander, and they decided to keep him. And we talked about this earlier in the pod, how they have no depth. I think you would have traded Marner last year or Nylander this year. You have that depth. Is it as good as having William Nylander? No. William Nylander is a generational talent. So is Mitch Marner. He is unreal as well. But it's going to get you that third line scoring. It's going to help you get some depth on that fourth line. Like, look what I know this is a bad example, but look what happened with the Jets in trading Pierre-Luc Dubois. He's nowhere near William Nylander or Mitch Marner. But we got some help in Gabe Vilardi, who I think has played better than Pierre-Luc Dubois ever did. We got a good prospect in Rasmus Kupari. I think we got a pick as well. And as well as that, we got Alex Iafallo, who helps that third line. He's good at checking. He hasn't been very good at scoring, but that's besides the point. We're not going to get into Jets talk here. But
he always turns it into Jets talk, doesn't he?
I somehow do, because I can relate a lot of the stuff to it. But I think if they would have traded one of those guys, they have that depth and that can allow them to make a deep cup run. And I don't know. So that kind of sucks for Toronto. That's really my only gripe with Tree Living, really. That Matthews signing was huge. I think you got to lock up Austin Matthews, especially after this season, almost putting up 70. I think that is all for the Maple Leafs for the rest of their lives. That should always be priority numero uno. Is make sure that Austin Matthews is signed and locked up to be a Leaf forever. I think you have that, you're good. So I think dealing with the Marner Nylander situation is my biggest gripe with him. But hey, they're in the playoffs still. So I can't really say shit, but I'm gonna give him a C.
Okay. All right.
That was a lot of talking. I'm so sorry.
That's all right. So those are the 6 GMs who have started their first year. We will do this next year. However, don't leave yet. 4 of these 6 teams we're going to talk about in our next topic. So we'll be right back. All right, so we're going to continue on in some other off-season related topics with a tier list. We've done a few of these on the podcast. We have a tier list here today talking about each team not in the playoffs and their future. How are these non-playoff teams' futures looking like? So we got all 16 teams here to my best recognition. I believe I got all 16 teams here. So we're going to get straight into it here. We have 5 columns. We have great future, good future, making progress, no man's land, and they're cooked. So they're cooked is bad future for the boomers out there. So we'll get straight into it here. Starting off with the Chicago Blackhawks. The Blackhawks finished second to last in the NHL this season. They have the second best odds at the first overall pick. Carter, where are you putting the Chicago Blackhawks in this column?
I feel like Honestly, Connor Bedard, I feel like no matter what, you got to put him. This is a positive no matter what. I think that you're going to have players who want to play with Bedard. So I think he's going to be able to attract a lot of talent, a lot of young talent, even a lot of old talent. I feel like guys are still going to want to play with a generational superstar as Connor Bedard. So, as well as that being said, they're guaranteed a top four pick, and any of those top four players will help them. So I'm going to put them at great future. I really like the future of the Chicago Blackhawks here. Um, so yeah, I'm going to put them in great future.
I'm with you on that. I'm going great future as well. I think you, I think with Bedard, with the chance of them getting Macklin Celebrini, as much as me and Carter have said vocally that we would hate that, Jack would love it, but we would hate that. Um, you can't deny they have a great future ahead. The Buffalo Sabres are next up here. The Sabres finished a few points out of the playoffs this year. It's the 13th straight season out of it. They hire Lindy Ruff as their head coach. Carter, where are you putting them in this column? I don't think like you can put them in there cooked, but I
Mm-mm.
don't know if like I'd say actually I don't know. Carter, what do you think?
So, so I think that I'm going to put them at good future. When you look at the Buffalo Sabres, they have everything right now. They got some good forwards. They have Zach Benson, who played really well his rookie year. As well as that, they got Matthew Savoy, who's in Wenatchee, I think he's in their minors right now. Jack Quinn as well. Tage Thompson highlights that. Dylan Cousins as well. Like they got that first line or that forward core good. Go to defense. They got Owen Power. They got oh my god, I'm blank. Darlene. They got Bowen Byram. Like they have a good defensive core too. And you're like, okay, well, their lacking has to be goalie. That's where you're wrong. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen and Devin Levi. This is a young team, and they have they. I want to put them in great future, but I think that we have to go good future because a lot of their guys are nearing either the beginning of their prime with some young guys, or they're nearing the end of it. So I would be comfortable putting them in good future, but I can definitely see them having a great future.
I'm on board with you as well. I'm glad that we're agreeing. I have them in good future. Listen, I think Buffalo, when we look a couple of years down the road, like we saw Carolina miss the playoffs for as long as they did. They've made it for the first time in a long time in 2019. I think like and we're a couple years down the road from that. They made the playoffs every single year since then. I think we're in the same terms there with Buffalo as we were with Carolina. Like they missed the playoffs for so long. I think Buffalo is gonna be like in a playoff spot for a very long time. But
Mhm.
and I think that if you put them in the Western Conference, or if you even put them like if you put them in the West, they're making the playoffs this year. It just sucks. You're shaking your head, but like I
It
think
was it was it was the opposite. The West was way tougher to get in.
oh really?
I swear, because
I mean, yeah, the East, the East, like it wasn't great towards the end when it came to the wild card race, but I think Buffalo would be would be way better in the Western Conference, in my opinion. I think they would be way better. All right,
no,
you're shaking your head, but
no.
I feel like this team, if they didn't play in a hard Atlantic and just that where like every team was essentially pretty solid this year, I think they would have a better chance of making it. But yeah, I have a good future there for Buffalo. I agree. St. Louis. I don't really know what to say about St. Louis. They finished just barely outside of the playoffs again. They obviously fired Craig Berube. Carter, you could be of the opinion that if you think that they bring in that they keep Bannister as the coach, and if they have a full season as him with him as coach, they can make the playoffs next year. But in terms of future, what do you think?
In terms of future, I'm tempted to throw them in no man's land. I don't think that they have very many prospects that are eye-catching to me. Um, or a lot of young players who are eye-catching to me either. I like Robert Thomas. I like Jordan Kyrou. I think they're both nearing their prime. Jordan Bennington's been all right this season. But when looking at the teams in good future and making progress, they don't seem to have a lot of prospects who I think could push them to making progress. Um, but I don't think that they're bad enough to say they're cooked. So I'm comfortable putting them in no man's land. That's where I'd want to put them.
Yeah, I'm gonna go no man's land too. I think that like they could make the playoffs next year. They could not. Like they're kind like that's pretty much no man's land. That's like the definition of no man's land. So I honestly have no clue. They don't have a bad future because I think they have guys like Kairu and some other younger players in the pipeline that have looked good, but they don't have like an amazing future either. Like I don't know. Like I think that they have pieces, but I'm still putting them in no man's land right now. The New Jersey Devils, they finished just outside of a playoff spot this year as well. Carter, where are you putting them in this?
I'm putting them in great future. I will say they're a goaltender away. They're a goaltender away from being guaranteed playoff team. So I'm putting them in great future because again, they're a goaltender away. There's nothing else to say. Luke Hughes is going to get better next year. Jack Hughes is in his prime. Um, that's all I'm going to say. They're a goaltender away.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think this year was a very unlucky year. I feel like they had a lot of goalie issues. They faced a lot of injuries too, which I understand that you look at like the goaltending, that's obviously the biggest issue, but they faced a ton of injuries. Had they had Hamilton healthy, I think they make the playoffs. I honestly think that if they have Dougie Hamilton on that blue line and some other people that stayed healthy, like if Jack Hughes stayed healthy the whole year, I think they make the playoffs too. Just an unlucky year. It sucks because it's a year removed, and you could be looking down the road if the Devils don't win a cup with this core. You could be thinking to yourself, man, if only we made it that 23-24 year.
That was the year.
Yeah. So, yeah, I have them in great future. I agree. I think they are a goalie away. Anaheim Ducks, they were pretty bad this year. They missed the playoffs. In terms of future, Carter, where do you think they stand?
So here's my thing. I think their forward core is going to be the best in the National Hockey League in a couple years. In the next 2, 3 years, they're lacking on defense decently. They lost probably their best defenseman in Jamie Drysdale. Olin Zellweger looked good. Mintkov looked good. Dostal's been pretty solid, and I think that when they do end up trading John Gibson, they'll get a pretty decent haul in return for him. Um, but again, I just don't know because every year I'm like, hey, when are these guys going to take their next step? When is after his rookie year? I was like, when is Trevor Zegras going to take his next step? He hasn't shown that next step yet. As much as I fucking love the guy, um, he hasn't taken that next step to prove to me that he can be good. Cutter's going to help them out a lot. McTavish is near his prime. Troy Terry is in his prime right now as we speak. Um, Leo Carlson looked good his rookie year as well. Um, so I think I would put them in good future just because I am not certain on their defensive core yet. I think if they get another defenseman, I think that this is a great future in Anaheim. But I think as of right now, without it, I think I'm going to put them in good.
Yeah, I'm going to put them in good too. I think that there are some things they still need to tweak. I think there's bad things you can look at. The forward core is amazing.
Hmm.
The forward core I think is absolutely unreal with Cutter Gochi added to that. I think it's absolutely insane. I think the defense will be good. I think the goaltending will be good. Just there's some concerns I have with Zegras and depth, and there's just a few things that I have concern with. But I think they have a good future right now. There is that question too of when do they take that next step. I really do hope that this coming season will be that next step. I
Hmm.
think it needs to be, right. I think it has
It,
to.
it it does. It definitely has to be because I feel like every year we're looking at this and we're like, man, they look good. Like they got some young players. They got to step up. Oh, they didn't step up. Oh, they got some young players. They didn't step up last year. Nope, didn't step up again. So this year has to be the year, or you gotta start looking at. It can't be coaching because you've changed that last year. I don't know where this team is gonna have to look if next year doesn't look better. If they are not outside of the bottom 10, they have
Yeah.
to be outside of the bottom 10 or fighting for a playoff spot. Otherwise, they got to take a hard look in the mirror and look and be like, what the fuck are we doing?
They'd be like an Ottawa situation right now. That's kind of where I would think
Yes.
that they would be. So I'm
Yes.
actually gonna make a change here to the tier list. I'm changing making progress to middling future, a future that's like not good, not bad. I want to change that just because I think making progress is like for rebuilding teams, and I'm just gonna make a change midway through. Philadelphia Flyers. Flyers obviously had a really surprising season. I have no idea where to put them. Carter, Carter, what are you thinking here?
So okay, so here's where I'm looking here. I really like the Flyers prospects. I think we have some excellent prospects. We got Oliver
Kachuk,
Bonk, who's been good.
Rizzo,
Rizzo, who's been good. We had another guy who we got from the London Knights. I think we took him in the
Barkley,
third round. I can't.
Barkley.
Denver Barkey. He's looked unreal. He took that next step this year. I really like our prospects. We had some guys who took that next step. Cam York being one of them. I think he was definitely our most improved player. Probably one of the most improved players this season. I really like our future. It is a very big question mark right now with the loss of Carter Hart. That definitely stings. We made some good trades. We got some picks as well. I don't think that it is enough to put us in great future. I didn't even mention Mitchkov. Mitchkov's going to be unreal. Um, but I don't know if it's enough to put us in great future. I don't want to be biased, so I feel like I'm going to be anti-Philly a little bit here. I'm fine with putting them in great future, but I think the safe bet is to say good future. So I think we have a top prospect pool in the league, but right now, like that last season, we either had to make playoffs or not make them at all. And we put ourselves in that no man's land position to where we can't get the first overall pick. As far as we can get is second. But we still do have a great future, so I don't think we're putting us in middling. So I would put us in good, but I can definitely see us going great.
So I'm going to refer back to our friend of ours, Michael Bartner. We've talked about him ironically in this podcast a couple of times. He said the Flyers are in no man's land, and he said that the Flyers kind of f themselves in the butt by overachieving this year and barely making the playoffs. I, on a level, I agree with that statement. I agree with the fact that we did overachieve. I feel like, and I agree with the fact that I do think that we did kind of f ourselves in the butt not making the playoffs this year. And as Carter said, this was a year where you kind of had to make it or not make it at all. Not barely missed by a couple of points. So that it kind of screwed ourselves over from like a top 10 pick this year. Had we, I would have rather us been bad this year, honestly, than it was. And listen, it was really fun. It was really fun this year to watch this team. This is the most I've enjoyed Flyers hockey in so long. Like before, like even like before this year, like last year, I wasn't really into it. I was like, they're there, it's fine. But this year was really, really fun watching the Flyers. So yeah, I think next year is going to be good. What Carter didn't mention is that Denver Barkley and Massimo Rizzo are going to be coming over to the NHL.
Mm-hmm.
So that them, Bobby Brink, Tyson Forster, Noah Kate, that could be a pretty damn good forward core if Barkley and Rizzo pan out. If Bonk comes over, which I think he plays a year in the AHL, I think you're looking at something good there too. What some people aren't even mentioning is Emil Andre. Emil Andre had a pretty good year in the AHL this year. There's a chance that next year he could come up and play well. Yerger Zamula looked good this year too. I think that again, I agree with Carter with the goaltending question. That's my biggest concern right now. But apart from that, I'm liking the future. I agree. I'm going with good future. I think
Did
putting us in no man's land, which is what Barner did, is not really that fair. I think that yes, we're not making the playoffs next year. I don't even think we make it the year after that. But I think this year showed that we might not need like 4 or 5 more years to make it back. We might only need like 2 or 3. So I'm perfectly fine with that. So good future. Next up, the Minnesota Wild. The Minnesota Wild missed the playoffs by a few points this year. They obviously fired or they fired who the hell was their coach? They fired Dean Evison. They brought in John Hines, and obviously, they're in this situation now. So Carter, where are you putting the Minnesota Wild right now?
I feel like I don't actually know where I want to put them because obviously you got good prospects.
I think I know where I want
Looking,
to go.
hmm?
I think I know where. I think I haven't. I don't know. I'm between no man's land and middling future.
I feel like realistically I want to put them in middling future.
Yeah,
Um, because I like Matthew Boldy. Matthew Boldy is going to be unreal. Um, Marco Rossi, right? That's one of the guys. Yeah,
yeah.
Marco Rossi. He looked really good this year. Brock Faber looked good, but it's just a fact of their aging core. Um, a lot of their players are old. They're not gonna have a goalie next year, or not next year, the year after. Because they lose Marc Andre Fleury, right? Fleury's with Minnesota? Am I being
Yeah,
stupid?
this year's going to be Fleury's last year
Yeah.
as goalie.
So this is Fleury's last year. So you're losing your goalie, who, even though Marc-Andre Fleury is almost 40 years old, or he is 40 years old, I don't know, he's somewhere within there. Um, you're losing him, and he's an elite goaltender still. Um, so it kind of sucks. I feel like I want to put them in middling future just because of that aging core, but they still have some good prospects who can help fill those roles. But they don't have enough to warrant me putting them in good future. So I'll put them in middling.
Yeah, I'm going middling too. I think that as long as they're paying Parise and Sutter, they're going to be a middling. I do think, though, they have a really good prospect pool. They have a lot of good prospects. I think that Wallstead, someone who Carter didn't mention with the goalie situation, could be
Oh,
really good.
Wallstead.
So I think that definitely there's things there, but with Minnesota, just like honestly, I think as long as they're paying those players, they're not going to be able to put together a legitimate cup contending team. I hope I'm wrong. I really hope that this team does do well. I like Minnesota. I really enjoyed Minnesota, but I think middling future is where you have to go. Seattle. Seattle missed the playoffs this year. A lot of guys had down seasons. Beniers had a pretty bad sophomore year. Carter, where are you putting Seattle in these?
I genuinely have no idea. Like, I feel like I want to just put them in no man's land because they took that step. So year one, I think we kind of figured it doesn't look like they're going for it year one. That's fine. We'll write them off. It's year one. They'll build up a future. They'll be okay. So we did, and that's what happened, right? Then next year they take that step. They're like, okay, well, we're like, okay, this could be a legitimate team here. Like we're looking at a team. Like this one, like they're a couple pieces away and they could make a good run. And then this year they're bad again. So I feel like they're stuck in no man's land or they're cooked. And I don't know which one it is.
See,
Because ultimately they have prospects, kind of. Beniers took that step down, which sucks for him. Shane Wright looked all right this year, but I feel like you want to see a little bit more, especially from a guy like Shane Wright. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I'd put them in no man's land or they're cooked. I don't know a whole heck of a lot about the prospect pool. I don't know if Nord does. So I'd put them in their cooked or no man's land, and I'm comfortable with either.
see, I disagree with both of those. I think I'm putting them in middling future. I think if Matty Beniers bounces back, I think if Shane Wright plays a full year in the NHL next year, I think the team will be way better. They're drafting eighth overall this year, so they have a chance of getting another really solid prospect, adding that to the pipeline. I forget who they got last year. I can't think of who it was. It'll come to my mind eventually, but Seattle, I think they have a decent prospect pool. They don't have like a really good future or a great future. I don't think they're in no man's land. I definitely don't think they're cooked. But I think that they have a middling future. I think they're like Minnesota. So it's up to you, Carter. What do you think?
If you want to I'm fine with middling future. I'm
Okay.
fine with that.
Okay. All right, we got Calgary. So the Calgary Flames obviously made a lot of deadline moves. They kind of missed the playoffs. They didn't do all too great this year. Carter, what's the future looking like? What do you think about Calgary? Are they
So
cooked?
I don't think I'd put them in there cooked. I think that they made some of the right deadline moves, or pre-deadline moves as well. Made some good trades, as I mentioned before. Kuzmenko's looked nice. He's a good young piece. They got a lot of picks to work with here. So I don't think I'd put them in their cooked or no man's land. I think with all the picks that they got and some of the young pieces that they acquired as well, I'd put them in middling. Um, I'm comfortable with putting them there. I really like the deadline moves they made this year. So I'll put them in middling. That seems fair for me.
I'm with you. I'm with middling future too. I think that, and this kind of sucks because we're doing this before the draft. I think if we did this post draft, our opinions on some of these may change. And it really depends on how some of these picks go for Calgary. If they get Vancouver's pick well, they have Vancouver's pick. If they use their pick, which is ninth overall, if they also use Vancouver's pick, draft some two really solid players, maybe their future's better. I think the young guys like Dustin Wolf, Coronado, Connor Zary, they're there for sure. But right now, I don't know if I can put them in good future. just because like I don't really know what next year's going to look like. Like I don't really know. Like they're not in no man's land, but I think that just the future feels very middling. So next up, Montreal Canadiens. The Canadiens obviously missed the playoffs this year as well. All these teams missed the playoffs. Stupid me. Um, Montreal, I felt like looked a lot better than they were supposed to, even though they finished last in the division. I think they looked very impressive overall. Carter, where are you putting them in this ranking? I think Slavkovsky had a good year. I think that Hudson's come over, has played
Mhm.
well. I think the future is pretty bright.
Yeah, I agree. So realistically, I think that Montreal and Anaheim are very comparable. I think you
Yes,
look
I
at
agree.
I think you look at Nick Suzuki and Troy Terry. I see those two as being very, very tight. I think you look at I mean, I wouldn't say Trevor Zegras and Cole Caulfield because I think Cole Caulfield is miles ahead of Trevor Zegras right now. But you look at some of the guys that they got, like Lane Hudson, there I really like their future. It's all about them taking that next step. I really like Slavkovsky. I think he played really well this year. He's I will be honest, he has proved that we got to stop judging prospects too early. Because everyone was ripping him last year, like, oh, this guy's horrible. He's terrible. He doesn't. Same with Alexi Lafreniere. Everyone was trashing him. Lafreniere put up a 30 goal season. Slavkovsky this year played well. What did he put up? Like 50, 60 points or
He had a
something?
pretty good season. He had a
As
very good season.
as a 19-year-old in the NHL, I don't care what you say. You're 19, you're still a teenager playing against grown adults. I don't care. 60 points, no 60 points in the NHL just in general is good. And especially as a 19-year-old, that is good. I think was first overall the right call? Maybe not. Maybe it was. Who knows? We're not going to find
I'm
out for
taking
another
Cooley.
5 years when we all decide to do a fucking redraft, okay?
Yeah.
But I really do like the future in Montreal. I don't know if it's enough to go great future, so I'm very comfortable putting them in good future because I think if I'm comparing them with Anaheim, I think it's all about them just figuring out when that next step is. And I don't know what they are away though. That's the thing. I feel like I want to say they might be a goalie away. Um, because I
I
think
think
their forward
Montemall's
core is
been good.
good.
I think it's just a
Yeah,
matter of them taking the next step. Reminder, they had the fifth overall pick again this year. They're
yeah,
picking fifth overall again. So
and
and,
could end up moving up as well.
and higher. So they have a very good chance at landing another really solid player here. And I think that in terms of just like the pool, I think the pool is awesome. Rhineback, the defense is going to be insane. Like when that is in its when every player gets like back to like where they're expected to be, that defense will be unbelievable. So yeah, I'm with you. I'm with good future. I think that you could even argue. I get that you're comparing them to Anaheim, but I think you could even argue if they get another solid player at this year's draft, they could have a great future. We'll see. Columbus. So Columbus finished really bad this year. We thought they would improve. It was another disaster season. The Mike Babcock situation. They fired Kekalainen through the year as well. They've handled Juracek and Pascal Vincent wasn't handled very well. So where are you putting them in this future? I think they have a good future, but it's just a matter of developing that. So what do you think, Carter?
I genuinely don't know. I like
Oh,
some of the prospects. I like some of the prospects that they have. Fantilli looked all right this year. I mean, it's an awful lot. He's 18, 19 years old. Um, so it's still an awful lot to ask out of him there. Um, so I don't know. It Renski's nearing the out of his prime. Yurchek's not happy with the team for not playing him. So I don't know what's going to happen with him. They don't have a goaltender, a young goaltender. Their forward core is meh. I'd put them in no man's land or middling. I'm real, in my opinion, I'm really not a fan of Columbus right now. I still think they have a couple more years of rebuilding.
I think I'm with you. I'm going middling. I like some of the guys they have in the pipeline, but I'm not too keen on a
I'm
lot of
not sold on them.
and I think that Merzlikins is not it. I don't they need to get rid of him.
Yeah.
Tarasov could be the guy, but like what do you know at this point? Like I have no idea. They're you could argue no man's land, but I'm putting them in middling future.
Hmm.
The Ottawa Senators. The Senators it was a rough year. They were expected to get better this year. They definitely did not. They're definitely looking at things with the coach. They might be looking at actually big changes in regards to trading guys like Chikrin, maybe even trading guys like Batherson. There's a good chance of that. So Carter, I'm thinking no man's land, but where are you on this?
I completely agree. I'm throwing them in no man's land. They need a coach bad, um, which it's needed. They need a fucking coach. They're wasting Stutzel's prime. They're wasting Kachuk's prime. The fact that Claude Giroux is went to Ottawa because he thought Philadelphia was going to be bad. And now we almost made the playoffs, and we have a better future than Ottawa too. Hilarious. Um, but I will say they've needed a coach, and we've talked about this before. I think we called them out on this.
This has been a topic for years.
Yeah,
And the funny thing is this dates back to the early episodes when we all had Ottawa going to the Cup final and Ottawa winning the Stanley Cup. That shows how much we've developed since then
yeah,
and how
yeah.
stupid we were
No,
back in the day.
they need help. They need a coach, and they need some young defensemen too. That is another thing that they need. They can't keep relying on Thomas Chabot, and especially if they do keep Jacob Chikrin. Um, but yeah,
I don't
they
know.
need a young defenseman.
It depends on how they move Checker and how they move some of the other players. I think if they get enough assets back, they could be in a good spot. But right now, it's no man's land. We got four more teams left. San Jose. San Jose was a team we talked about earlier. They were the worst team in the NHL this year. I think that like essentially, they brought in some good prospects. They traded away some players for some first round picks and good prospects. Carter, where do you stand on San Jose? They're kind of weird. They were the worst team in the NHL this year. I don't really know where you would put them. Do you put them in the same as Chicago, or what's going on here?
So I would not put them in the same as Chicago
I
because
think if they
I
get
don't think
Celebrini, maybe.
I think that I agree. I think they get Celebrini. I think I'm putting them in great future just off that forward core alone. Um, but they're lacking in defense. They're lacking in goaltending. Um, so realistically, I think Will Smith will definitely help this team. I think without Will Smith, they're in no man's land. So I think with Will Smith, I'd throw the middling future. But especially with this year having a top three pick, guaranteed lockdown, I think I'd put them in good future just based off that alone. I really like Will Smith. I think he's going to be a superstar in this league. 3 years into 3 years into it, honestly. Colin Graff is going to have a nice instant impact for the San Jose Sharks as well. And then if they end up getting Macklin Celebrini, that's just going to add to that forward firepower. But again, as I will say, they also have Pittsburgh's pick as well.
Yep.
Um, it is top 10 protected, I'm pretty sure, but still.
No, they have it.
Oh, it's 100%.
Yep, it's 100%. They're gonna have it.
All right, perfect. So if Pittsburgh moves up, that is just going to be absolutely unreal for them because they'll end up getting one of the top defensemen. Um, so realistically, this is looking good for them. They're instantly getting top first two players in the top half of the first round, which is really good to help build your future. So I'm comfortable putting them in good future. But I think with Celebrini, it's great future for sure.
I think I'm going with good future. I think I'm on the same page as you. I like what they're building. I really like it. It's gonna take a long time before they get there though. But I like the future after year one. Like I really like the future. So we got three more teams here. Pittsburgh. I think they're the only team that I'm gonna put in there cooked. I do you agree with me? I think they're the only team that I'm gonna put in that column.
In here, here's the thing for future wise, probably, but you still have Sidney Crosby for the
True.
next 2-3 years.
Maybe
And I feel like as far as
four.
future, when we're looking at this, we're looking at 3 years, if more. Um, like 3-4 years. So I think if you have Crosby for that, you can't really put them in there cooked because I think they'll still
Yeah.
compete every single fucking year with Crosby. Um, if we were doing this based on their prospect pool, 100% they're going in there cooked. This is future wise, and you're gonna keep Crosby. He'll be there for the next 4 years. I think we go no man's land with them.
You got a point. I'm with you.
So
Part of that was just because I wanted to put a team in there cooked, but I don't think the other two we have are going to be in there cooked. But I mean, I agree with you. I think they are going to compete, but they're just in no man's land
yeah,
because
they don't have the prospects, and especially with trading that first round pick this year, not a good look.
kind of shoots them in the foot.
Oh,
So we got Salt
100%.
Lake City, Salt Lake City, not Arizona, Salt Lake City.
Salt Lake.
So in terms of their future, obviously like Arizona missed the playoffs this year, but I think their future, I think I'm gonna take the lead with this. I think they have a really good future. I don't know if it's great, but I think they have a good future. Carter, where do you stand on that?
I agree. I feel like the only team that I think I like better in the good future category, I would say, is Buffalo. Um, I think either one of those two is looking great because I really like the prospects that Arizona has. I think they did this rebuild tremendously. They still have a lot of picks in this year's draft and next year's. Um, so I'm a really big fan of this draft. Um, not of this draft, of their prospect pool. That's what I'm getting at
Cool.
here. Um, they got some good NHLers. Clayton Keller's going to take that next step. Logan Cooley, this was year one of him in the NHL. He played really well. I think you give him a little bit more time to develop too. He's going to be good. They have some good defensemen as well. Vejmelka looks good as well. So I think they're one or two pieces away. They have Connor Geekie, who is playing with Tucson right now in the playoffs, as Swift Current just ended. So we'll see how he does there in the AHL, trying to actually playing against grown men and no longer against 20-year-olds. So we'll see how he does there. I think that he will end up doing really well because I've watched him a lot. He's nasty. Um, so I really like their future here. I think the only team with a better future in the good future category is Buffalo. But I really like that team.
Okay. And finally, we have the Detroit Red Wings. The Red Wings obviously barely missed out on the playoffs this year. I am a massive fan of Detroit's future. So I'm going to let Carter take the lead here first, and then I will go in depth with mine.
Whoa, okay, I get to take the lead. I think that this is an automatic good future. I really like how this team is. We saw Lucas Raymond take that next step this year. You want to put them in great, don't you?
I do. I do want to
Yeah,
put.
I would be fine with putting them in great future as well. Um, because they have a lot of good players in that pool. Goaltending I think is probably their biggest, like, could use a little bit of work on.
I think if
Um
Costa
I,
develops, they'll be good.
I agree. I think if Kosa plays as well in the NHL, I think that he'll be really good. Um Sider is probably going to end up being one of the best defensemen in the NHL next year. Um or the following year. He's going to constantly be that big body but can also put the puck in the back of the net and help put the puck in the back of the net. Lucas Raymond took that next step, and oh my gosh, this guy is going to be unreal for Detroit.
Mhm.
He took that first step year one, his rookie year, then kind of not fell off, but he started to drift off a little bit. But this year he bounced right back. He led this team in points. Not to mention they also got some good defensemen. Ben Sherratt's a good D man. David Perron helps that team out a lot as well. They also got Patty Kane, who did he sign? He signed just a 1 year deal,
He
correct?
did sign a 1 year deal. I think.
So
I think they keep him though. I think
I
they.
think I agree. I think that he will want to play with DeBrincat again. Yeah, Alex DeBrincat too. Like they got some good players in that area, as well as some good prospects too. So I really like the future there in Detroit. I'm comfortable putting them in great future. Um, yeah, but I don't think they have the best out of those great future teams. I think that
Oh, for sure.
I think that they have enough to be considered a great future. Um, but yeah, I'm comfortable putting them there.
Yeah, I like Detroit a lot. I think they have a really good forward core. They have good depth. I think the defense is going to be great too. If Costa can develop, I think they do have an overall really solid future. I think I think they're a playoff team next year. I genuinely think they're a playoff team next year. I think that the Devils make it back in, and I think that the Red Wings make it back in.
I
So
agree.
to recap here with our tier list, we have in the great future column, the best column. We got the Chicago Blackhawks, the New Jersey Devils, and the Red Wings. The good future column, we have the Sabres, Salt Lake City, the Anaheim Ducks, the Canadians, the Flyers, and the Sharks. Middling future, we have the Wild, Kraken, the Flames, and the Blue Jackets. And then in no man's land, we have the St. Louis Blues, the Ottawa Senators, and the Pittsburgh Penguins. Nobody got cooked today. Nobody was cooked. So you can thank
As
us.
much as Nordic wanted to, there's no one in there cooked.
Yeah, there's no one in there cooked. I just wish that Washington was here because I would put them in cooked. But regardless.
I agree. I would put if they were there, I would put them in cooked.
Yeah, so maybe we'll do this again. We might do this again when the playoffs are over. So yeah, anyways, that will conclude episode number 53 of the NordCast. We appreciate you guys for listening here all the way to the end. Another long episode here. We enjoy these. We've made a lot. I think the last like 6 or 7 episodes have been an hour long. So that's pretty awesome.
Been a lot of fun.
But yeah, a lot of content here for you guys. But regardless, thank you all guys very much for watching or listening. If you enjoy it on the YouTube end of things, make sure to like and subscribe down below. We would greatly appreciate it. If you're on the podcast end of things, give us a good review, tell your friends, all that good stuff. If you want to follow the Instagram, be sure to follow at NordCast _. And if you want to follow the TikTok, follow at NordCast. So that's it for us. Thank you all for watching, and we will see you guys in the next episode. Adios.